2 days ago. Always wanted to know what a zombie game with zombies would look like. The game will never ever be a thing. The developer is too sus. Oh no. That's why they said it. Give them survivalist fans. Executive, give them something to look at. God damn it. Why? Oh no. Thank goodness I don't have an eye tracker. Okay, game. This is the trailer for a zombie game? The thing is, like, I'm a sucker for zombie games. So if it actually becomes a game, I'll actually play. I don't know. Who can say no? World War Z? Now this one is more like DayZ than World War Z. World War Z is like stages. This is it. Bro, I can find this in any game. Here you have a gun. It's starting to get dark outside. The zombie horde is supposed to come, right? Like when it gets dark? Or there's gonna be more zombie activity in the dark? Oh, there you go. Okay, lots of noise. There's gonna be like a zombie horde now, right? Making all that noise when it's just quiet. No, they're in the city. Like, how are there no bodies of zombies everywhere, or zombies that are walking around? Period, plaguing the place. Imagine if your alarm was like that. Like, it tells the robber which code is correct. Robber's just trying to rob your house, and he's like, no, no, no. You only got one right out of 3 out of 4. Oh my god. It's supposed to be a city, no? Cities are supposed to be like riddled with zombies. Because if a zombie apocalypse happens in the city, that's where the most of the population is. They live twice for a year or something. Last year was 9 months because some of sus rights, or they forgot to buy or whatever. Oh, like a copyright? Okay. I see zombies. A really low amount of zombies for a city. Yeah, that's when I first saw the initial trailer. It looked like it was a combination of like a zombie game, you know, with like the Division like graphics. That's why like I wanted it to be a thing, and I waited. Like by the time like I checked, I wanted it to be like ready, but to this day it's still not ready. Surprisingly little amount of zombies alerted by gunfire. The only reason why I'm still watching is because of the first thing that we mentioned, and number 2, I've done more walking in DayZ before meeting any zombies, so this is bearable at least. But for it to be that, but that was like in the wilderness. Like, this is in the city. BVS pharmacy. You're in the center of the city and there's no zombies. There's no horde of zombies. And the thing is, like, there's still some of the lights are still on, so I mean, it couldn't have been that long before the zombie apocalypse happened, so this city should still be populated, swarming with zombies, but there's none. Watch that in your... Let me see. Lou said that's how it was in the Philippines when COVID first started. Nobody was outside. Oh no. So maybe this is COVID with some angry people that didn't want to get vaxxed or something, or didn't want to wear masks.
Before November 10th, 2023.
November 10th? No wonder people think it's a scam. It's been delayed twice and you're going to delay it until November 10th, 2023? And that's all you have to show? Why you should be concerned.
Now, the day before has been Steam's #1 most wishlisted game, which
#1
is kind
most
of
wishlisted
insane
game.
when you consider that it's a brand new IP coming from a fairly unknown developer. Fantastic is a studio that up until recently had only ever made small, early access indie titles that they abandoned, and a mobile game. Their most recent release, Prop Night, isn't doing particularly hot at the moment either. So for them to all of a sudden...
So, I mean, the only thing that you would get from this is that at the very least now, AAA developers know exactly what people want. Like, small indie company had this idea and it became the #1 most wishlisted game in Steam. Like, if you're a AAA company and you see this happening, like, something should trigger in your head, be like, oh, okay, this is what they all want. Like, the thought of this makes people wishlist it, and like it's the top wishlisted game in Steam. Let's start making this right now, and even better than they can, because you know that they're gonna do it. Now you see, like, somebody made a battle royale. Battle royale is successful. Okay, let's all make battle royales. It's the same thing in every game. So I'm pretty sure like some big name companies are making a game exactly like this now.
Sudden have a game in development that more people want than any other upcoming game on Steam. It's kind of crazy. Currently, more people are interested in the day before than A Plague Tale Requiem, Arc Raiders, Nightingale, Marvel's Spider-Man, Modern Warfare 2, Stalker 2, even Starfield, a brand new zombie game from an unknown developer. More people are interested in that than in Starfield. Now that could be an argument for where Starfield's at, I think it's clearly a testament to how much desire still exists for the zombie survival genre
There will
that's
always
been
be.
unfulfilled within the gaming community.
Always
But
be.
also, how much gameplay trailers with decent looking graphics can really sell the idea of a game to people. But I beg of you, as much as you may want this to be an amazing next-gen zombie survival PvP MMO, which is what they're calling it, please temper your expectations. The red flags are so numerous, I have lost count of the number of concerning issues around this game and around its developer. But I don't know, let's try adding them up, shall we? Starting with the developer. These are the people who are making the game, so goes without saying that their history is a fairly important thing to consider. Fntastic is a studio that was founded back in 2015 by two brothers who, according to their mission statement, dreamed of creating a global organization that would work on world-class games. With that objective in mind, they began work on their very first title, The Wild 8. The Wild 8 was a top-down survival action game set in the frozen wilderness of Alaska. Players could go around gathering resources, fighting creatures, building, crafting. You know, it was the standard survival shtick. Now, initial reception was fairly positive, with the game scoring some decent reviews when it first entered early access in February 2017. However, things turned south very quickly. Shortly after the early access launch, Fntastic sold the rights to the game to their publisher. Why? Well, according to them, we sold The Wild 8 to our publisher. This decision was very hard for us because our team was hoping to always evolve the game. The Wild 8 is our debut project. It brought us first success and valuable experience, but nevertheless, because of internal conflict with partners within the company, we had to sell the project to the publisher. We will always love The Wild 8. It's in our hearts. So the explanation that they gave for why they had to sell The Wild 8 just a few months after it entered early access was due to internal conflict with partners within the company, whatever that means, and why ever that would mean they would have to sell the rights to their game. Or it could be, and hear me out here, it could be due to the fact that just a couple months after the early access launch, the player base had already dropped down to an average of just 100 concurrent players. So after collecting the money from the game's initial sales and realizing that the game really wasn't going anywhere, they decided it was best to just stop supporting it altogether, get a little bit more extra cash by selling its rights, and then just move on to their next thing, which was Dead Dozen, a first-person multiplayer horror game where players in teams of 4 would try to survive the depths of a mysterious pyramid infested with ghouls. Dead Dozen released into Steam Early Access on March 7th, 2018. This was just 1 year after the early access release of their prior title, and it was less than 6 months after they sold it off. However, unlike The Wild 8, this game didn't even start on a positive note, getting mostly negative reviews for being full of bugs, having poor performance, constant crashes, and, well, just not being particularly good. The player count peaked on launch day at 81 concurrent players, and it was down to 14 players just 1 week later. So what did Fntastic do when their second attempt at making a game immediately bombed? Well, you guessed it. They abandoned ship. In June 2018, a mere 3 months after their early access launch, they posted this announcement.
I'm surprised they didn't abandon a day before yet. It was supposed to launch like, what, last year? They delayed it twice, and now it's delayed all the way till November in 2023. Are they actually taking money for pre-orders? Because if they are, that's, you know, I feel like people would have more of an opinion when it comes to like calling it a scam. But if they're not charging anybody anything, now the problem is it does become a scam if they manage to convince people to invest in it and then they don't deliver. Now that is probably even more egregious on their end, because like the people that do invest like a ton of money into it are, I would think, like people who have some means to sue them. It's been delisted by Steam to make sure nothing like that happens. It says enough when Steam delists your game, because Steam is, I don't think Steam is just gonna delist your game just because like there has to be like a just cause. Like what if like Steam would have to ask them like, hey, is there anything that you could provide to us that's concrete that tells us like your game is, if there is an actual game? Like, how do we know that like you can pay somebody on Fiverr? The trailers that we've seen, a lot of those trailers, like you could actually pay somebody on Fiverr to make a trailer like that for you. My thought would be that like either it was a precaution, I should say, that like Steam was trying to do by delisting their game. But at the same time, it's like maybe Steam could have very well asked, like, hey, can you prove to us that you actually have a game? And if they couldn't provide any proof of that, then I mean, there you go. You get delisted. I'm not sure what the checklist is for that, but evidently they didn't make it. So that does give people a right to say that, yeah, this might very well be a scam.
We apologize for the lull that has been lately. It's time to take stock of the development of Dead Dozen because from today we stop supporting the game. Why? Let's take a look at the situation in detail. They then posted a pie chart, which as you can clearly see, tells us absolutely nothing in detail at all. And then they went on to say, unfortunately, the budget ended on April 1st. Of course it ended on April Fool's Day. We were not able to realize much of what we were planning.
People were probably like, is that a joke? Is that an off-season April Fool joke? These were their own funds, right? They borrowed some funds, and this is what they got in the pre-sale, which is not bad as a pre-sale, right? Because like as long as you know that your game is good, you have faith that your game is good. Obviously, I would hope so because you spent the time to make it, you spent the time to advertise it to people. If it is a good game, it'll get viral, and people will keep buying your game. Like just look at like games like that, like Vampire Survivor. You just look at the game like. Games like Among Us, right? It doesn't matter like how good it looks, as long as it's a good game, people will buy it. Yeah, like if they actually took money from pre-sales just like that and ran away with it, like I wouldn't be surprised if people call them a scam. Plus, like this right here is loss of income, loss of like I guess like their own funds. They're at a huge deficit right now.
In detail at all. And then they went on to say, unfortunately, the budget ended on April 1st. Of course it ended on April Fool's Day. We were not able to realize much of what we were planning. There are still small bugs and not enough content. But even if we stayed on the development of this project, we must admit that we cannot solve the problem of low online in a short time without changing the core of the game. This could not be done either by Cliff Bleszinski or Paragon with their colossal resources and huge team. So their budget was up, and if Cliff Bleszinski couldn't save Paragon, there ain't no way that Fantastic is going to be saving the Dead Dozen. They did, however, keep the game live and available for purchase for a few more years, up until recently in October 2021 when it was finally removed from Steam. Oh, and a fun little side note about Dead Dozen here. On the About page on Fantastic's website, where they detail their history as a studio, there is a noticeable gap in the timeline where Dead Dozen should be. They just don't even mention having ever made the game, which, you know, I don't blame them. It was pretty awful and basically nobody played it. Hey, I mean,
I don't blame them for that. If you want to have like any type of a shot, right? Because like everyone, people deserve chances, you know, second chances, all that. Just because like they fully messed up on like the one game doesn't mean that like they don't deserve to make another game, right? Like if you were to hand over your resume to an employer, the jobs where you got fired from, for example, it's like I know a lot of people wouldn't, right? Because if they call that company and they said like, oh yeah, we've had a bad experience with this person, yeah, all that, but like that might not be the case for everything. So I can see why they did it, but I still don't support it. Like I'm just trying to look at it from their perspective.
Geez, I'm tempted to delete 90% of my back catalog here on YouTube, but you know what? No, it's part of my journey. Bad videos and all. So for those of you keeping track at home, in the span of 18 months, just a year and a half.
I feel like that's unfair because like it's videos, bad videos. Bad videos is bad videos, right? Like if people just don't like watch it or it doesn't get recommended, it's fine. But if you put that on your on your website as a company, it's not just gonna be a bad video. It's gonna be a bad rap for your whole company, and that might like cause people not to, you know, give you a chance when you maybe they do deserve a chance with this, even though they've royally messed this up already. But you never know, it could be a good game, but you know, higher chance that it could be a scam.
They released 2 games into early access, collected the money for both of them, and then abandoned both of them. On to the next thing. 1 month after halting development on Dead Dozen, they released Radiant One, a story-driven adventure game for mobile devices. Not a whole lot to say here. It's a phone game, and apparently, according to reviews, it's only 20 to 30 minutes long, so let's just say it's a relatively small-scale experience. Now, we fast forward a few years to December 2021.
Okay. I hope they didn't charge for that.
For their highly anticipated title the day before, Fantastic also revealed and released a surprise new game. It's called Prop Night. They had evidently been developing this simultaneously with the work they were doing on the day before. And to put it simply, it is a hybrid of Prop Hunt and Dead by Daylight. So how is the game done, you may be wondering? Well, currently, Prop Night has a mixed rating on Steam, with some recent reviews saying the game is struggling, is full of bugs. Others said said that it even has more bugs now and even worse bugs than it did at launch, that the game is poorly balanced, and that as of recently, because the population has dropped so low, people are reportedly waiting up to 10 minutes to get into a single match. According to SteamDB, the daily concurrent count
With no MMR, like there's just like a free for all. Nobody can even queue for a match for 10 minutes. That's crazy.
of players right now hovers between 200 and 400, which isn't completely dead, but it is certainly not thriving and is a far cry from the nearly 5,000 all-time peak that they had on launch day. I guess to their credit though, they have continued to update the game. It's still getting new patches. They're even doing a visual overhaul. Although I do wonder if this would still be the case if they didn't have the spotlight that they now have on them because of the anticipation for the day before. I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but if their history was any indication, there's a chance that this game could have also joined the abandoned pile. But, you know, so just to recap here, to date, FNtastic's track record looks like this. February 2017, they released the Wild 8 into early access. Later that year, they sell the game's rights, cashing out and move on to their next project. That project being Dead Dozen, which they released into early access a year later in March 2018. The game completely flops, and then 3 months later, they halt any further development. A month after that, they released the Radiant one, a 20 to 30 minute phone game. Then in 2021, they released Prop Night. Currently, that's averaging around 300 players and has mixed ratings on Steam. So that has set the stage. Now you know the background and the history of the developer, of the people making the game that everyone's looking forward to the day before. Now let's talk specifically about the day before. This was first announced in January 2021 as an open world survival MMO set in a deadly post-pandemic America that has been overrun by flesh-hungry infected. The game was said to be set in a huge...
I will say that like the games that they've made before didn't look like games that would be like wildly successful. Unless like somehow like maybe the prop night one would have become like viral, but like the whole thing that they did with the previous one where it was like very like, you know, Back for Blood ish like kind of game, is that like it's hard to compete when there's like really good ones out there that look like, you know, Back for Blood or like World War Z, for example. It's hard to compete with that because those ones look really good. Obviously they have a high budget as well. But then they finally come out with this the day before, and it's a game that actually looks really good, that can compete with those other top games. And the fact that it's like the top, it was the top wish listed game on Steam. And I'm just trying to try to see from their perspective here. Like if it was me, I would probably be like, okay, so my previous experiences with our previous game, it wasn't good. There were lots of bugs. And what we learned was like, if there's tons of bugs when your game first starts, the high population that we had in the beginning just plummeted, right? So that's one of the lessons that they learned. Number two is like, if there are any legal problems and they try to launch the game and they receive like a cease and like desist saying that like, hey, you guys need to take down your game until this has been resolved, or else you're going to have like a lawsuit in your hands or whatever. And then that also kills the momentum. It's tough to say that like their decision has not been justified, because I feel like it has, based on like their experiences with the previous games. Like, you know, if they took like a whiteboard and they wrote down like, what have we learned, right? That would be on there. Like if this comes out buggy, the population plummets right away. If there's any legal problems with this that we have, where we have to take the game down or shut it down for like until it's resolved, there goes all of the momentum that we had at the start. Number three is like, if this gets taken down, like, right, if it gets taken down for an unknown amount of time, what if like bigger companies would try to delay that amount of time that it's delayed so that they can make and release their own after they see the initial numbers of a day before? That would make sense. So I can't discount them completely. And this is coming from like a person who is neither a fan or an antagonist of theirs, that I can understand why those decisions might need to be made based on their history. But at the same time, you cannot deny that like based on their history, at the same time, it's like it works for and against them, that this looks really bad. And this makes it look like that they don't have an actual game. even though we know that they can make a game. So it's up there, like whether there's a game or not. Being delisted on Steam, definitely it does not look good.
Huge detailed open world with large cities and towns, mountains and forests, all of which are full of homes and stores and skyscrapers and various other buildings and places that could be explored and looted. We will have to scavenge for resources, tools, and weapons to fend off the PvE threat of zombies, but also other players, as the game will have a PvP focus as well. There will be survivor colonies where we could go to trade, communicate, and team up with others. And they said that their goal with this game is to bring big innovation to the long stagnant survival MMO genre. Immediately after this trailer came out, there was a ton of hype. The announcement trailer that was released by IGN has about 4.5 million views to date. And at the time, many people in the YouTube community expressed a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, which generally I am all about. Gaming, I mean, yeah, it's a hobby that's supposed to be fun after all, so why not? Let's get pumped. And that was my gut reaction here too. A new open world zombie survival MMO with PvP. The trailer had solid looking visuals, very reminiscent of like The Division and The Last of Us, which I liked. Sweet, dude, sounds good. And yet, at the same time, I felt like something was a bit off. And now, at first I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was, but something seemed kind of too good to be true. It was at that point that I started digging into the developer's history and those first red flags began popping up, which if you've been following the video so far, now you are aware of all of those details as well. But even putting the developer's past works and their actions aside, something about that first trailer didn't seem honest. But I'm no developer, and I can only glean so much information from watching a trailer. Fortunately, some real-life game developers also...
Or how do you get a feeling that like a trailer doesn't seem honest? Like what does that even mean? I'm just curious, because it's like, it's hard to... It's like just saying that, like, I feel like this trailer isn't honest. How would you even be, what check marks would like get ticked in your head that would tell you that like something is not honest? A game trailer is not honest. But it seemed like a pretty basic trailer to me. You can CGI render and fake a game. Yeah, you can. Then you can say that about everything. Some stuff looked like seen before. Yeah. You know, but that doesn't make you automatically tell you that like a game is fake, right? Like because like when I first saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this reminds me very much of like the Division and with zombies, and that's all it really like showed me. But that's not enough to make me say like, oh yeah, this is fake. Pre-trailer versus game was a whole different world. It's very hard to just up and say that like, yeah, I think this is fake. Just off of that first trailer, you can say that you might have seen it somewhere before.
Raised some early concerns. But these next couple of clips were taken from a video titled "Developers React to the Day Before." In it, we see Chase Colazzi, a producer at Riot Games, and Walter Hochbrechner, who spent 23 years in the gaming industry working most for Spheroid Productions. Here are some of their first impressions.
Is this in game?
The day before.
It is.
Oh my.
I'm getting very The Division vibes from this.
Wow.
Exactly.
The shadows are incredible. The lighting is just excellent.
Told you,
Look at
show
this.
reflections.
Oh man.
In an MMO though, I'm skeptical.
How can they do that? I'm getting a feeling this has all been rendered. This is not.
I think it's more of a vertical slice on first impression.
Yeah.
A vertical slice, if you don't know, is this doesn't mean that the whole game is done and it looks like this. This is probably a section that they popped out, and we're able to develop and carve out and make certain things look final when they're not. That's what happened with Watch Dogs. That's what happened with Cyberpunk for a lot of it. So I'm a little skeptical.
Now, their main takeaway here seems to be that this looks way too good for what the developer is calling it to be an open world MMO, and that this is either because
they called it an open world MMO. I thought it was just like Division, where a certain amount of teams like hopped in, but they actually want it to be like an open world MMORPG, or just MMO. I mean,
just a vertical slice, a small section of the game that they made specifically for the trailer, or B, because it's all pre-rendered, aka it's not actual gameplay. Either of which seem very likely, but that second point is one that a lot of other people have picked up on since. In fact, every bit of
but like, isn't like proper lighting and all that like already part of UE5, or is this not made in Unreal Engine 5?
Gameplay that they've released so far seems like it's not actual gameplay, but rather is pre-scripted footage masquerading as gameplay. Also, it's all seemed very small in scale, with the environments being fairly closed off in a degree that makes it appear not to be open world at all, but I'll touch on that later. They also made this point here.
Things are about to get heated.
Over here.
Here's the thing, and this is why I think it's pre-baked.
Yeah.
See, that's supposed to be another player.
Right.
Can we go back? See the way they come in? It looks like it's an animated character that's not another player, but that means that those can't actually be other players.
When I first saw this one, when I first saw this one, I never thought of this as like PvP. I thought like that when I first saw this one, I thought this was like, you know, like when a game just is like starting out, for example, right? Like you know how like it gives you like control of the character for like a little bit, and then you get forced into like a cutscene. This is what it seemed like to me, at least in my experience. I didn't know that it was actually supposed to be other players, because if so, then that's definitely suspicious.
It could be. It could very well be they have their own, you know, AI players.
To move like that, they would have to be AI, because if it was a real player, the animation wouldn't be that smooth. When you actually play a game, you're kind of jittery.
So based on the character's movement, they believe it's not very likely that it's actually a real player controlling the character as it is implied to be in the video. They specifically say there's more players coming, which again lends further credit to the idea that this entire trailer was just pre-baked. But let's go ahead and move on from that first initial trailer. In the following months, they released a few short clips, 20 to 30 second videos showing off various aspects and some areas in the game. And then in April, we got this countryside video. This was the longest bit of extended day before footage that we have seen so far. It opens up with a Jeep driving through some mud, arriving at
now I gotta say, this one looks too good.
that we have seen so far. It opens up
that right there. Yeah, that looks way too good.
With a Jeep driving
right there
through some mud, arriving at a gas station where they had to stop due to a flat tire. They then get out and we get to see some combat as they
unless that was supposed to be like a cinematic part again. But again, if it's an open world MMO, like that probably shouldn't be existing unless it's like instanced.
Fend off a few zombies, and then they search around for loot, eventually finding the materials needed to fix the flat tire. Pretty cool mechanic, honestly. With the Jeep in working order, they drive further down the road, arriving at a clearing with a farm in the distance. They sneak through the field, doing a bit of stealth, going into the house, failing to disarm an alarm system, then alerts a bunch of zombies. They fight them back, and at the end, we see what we are assuming to be a group of players arrive in a few vehicles, which force the duo into the bunker. This trailer, like the first one, was actually pretty impressive in a lot of ways. Although, also like the first one, I get the sense that it's not actually gameplay and is just pre-rendered. And you might be asking yourself,
okay, so that's a suspicious, unless it was like AI. If there's multiple players here, they're not just looking into the house. Like, they would be looking all over the place. So that's suspicious.
First one, I get the sense that it's not actually gameplay and is just pre-rendered. And you might be asking yourself, like, who cares, right? What's the point of harping on whether or not this is gameplay or pre-rendered, whether it is actually a player playing? It's still footage of the game, right? It's still stuff that's in engine. Well, frankly, the biggest issue that I have with seeing what seems to be pre-rendered fake gameplay is that they just don't want to show us the real in-action footage and what it looks like, because what the game...
Wait, but they constantly state that they are players. If they were to state that it is AI, there would be nothing wrong with that, but they do not. Oh, so that's where they're messing up. Kind of like Tarkov, you could have NPCs, you could have, you know, it's like there's nothing wrong with that, but they seem so defensive about that part if they actually like denied it. Yeah, they're not doing themselves any favors.
Game actually looks like when it's running with real people playing probably won't look nearly this good, or it won't perform nearly as well, because you can fake great visuals with good performance by just not showing actual live gameplay and just rendering all your stuff within your engine. And that is the number one issue that I have with what we're seeing, is that it won't be at all representative of the final product once real people are in and playing the game. We've been hoodwinked by this time and time again with early quote gameplay trailers that look nothing like the final product, and I am fairly confident that that is also what we're getting here. And all of this is not even touching on the fact that everything that they've shown, it looks super linear and not even remotely open world. They are billing this as not only an open world game, but as an MMO, which the assumption there is that there are going to be a lot of people in an open world game. The only area that looked even relatively open was the field that they sneak through in this video, but even that seems like a pretty confined space with bordered by this tree line that that appears to be impassable. If you go back and look at the intro, the driving on the road, look at those areas around the gas station with the fencing and those thick line of trees, it all looks clearly very confined with solid borders that you are not able to cross. This is all just judging from a trailer, but the layout of it, the appearance of it, seems to be mostly tight corridors that we are walking or driving through. And hey, you know what? Linear games are totally cool. I love them, but they're calling this an open world game and they're calling it an MMO. And from everything they've shown, I am not convinced that that's what they've actually made. So call it something else if it's something else. After this trailer, a few more months go by, and then in October, we get the release date trailer, which showed a bunch of short clips showing various in-game stuff. This was pretty jam-packed and was pretty good looking. We saw shots of a city and its downtown, of a countryside and forest. We got clips of what looked to be one of the social hubs with what I'm assuming is a lot of players hanging around. We see a group of players walking through the streets, taking on some zombies, and then exploring this insanely good-looking, super highly detailed shopping mall. They also show off some insanely good-looking, super highly detailed shopping mall. They also show off some player housing with this little home being upgraded and decorated.
Oh, there's player housing? Okay, well, I don't know, man. I feel like MMO, player housing, all that on a game like this, I feel like it's a little too ambitious. Based on their history, like, if you told me that, like, yeah, maybe they just learned enough lessons from those previous experiences that they're able to now make something like this.
We see some weapon customization with a mounted gun having its attachments changed. This was a very, very good looking trailer. I mean, it looks amazing. And that was pretty much it for trailers and reveals for the day before. In between, there was a couple of other things, like a 2-minute combat trailer where they showed some PvP in the streets, an NVIDIA RTX showcase video, as well as some screenshots and clips here and there. But beyond what they've shown of the game, there have been a few more developments around the game. For one, the day before was originally set to release on June 21st of this year. However, 1 month prior, in May, they announced a delay, saying that they were changing engines from UE4 to UE5, and that the game would now be scheduled to release on March 1st, 2023. I've heard conflicting reports about how easy or not it is to swap from one Unreal Engine version to another. Some people say it's fairly quick, like the snap of a finger. You push a button and everything's converted. Other people have said, and I've seen some people, industry people.
Wait, Hayes, how easy is it to go from UE4 to UE5? I know Ashes did it, but how easy is it actually? Or hard? Do you think? Like, especially for a game like this.
People say, like developers say, seeing a last-minute engine swap like that announced 1 month before the original release date is a very, very bad sign and pretty foreboding for what's to come. Also, and this is a strange one, not too long after announcing this delay, their official website randomly went offline. And I'm not talking about like for an afternoon. Their site was down for multiple weeks. It just directed you to this like login page. It was very, very strange, and I never saw it officially discussed as to why or how this happened. Not a big deal, just an interesting thing of note. But the most recent breaking news around this developer and their game is that they've been actively searching for unpaid help to work on the title, helping with things like translation and other tasks and activities. You know, people volunteer for stuff all the time, right? Like unpaid interns, they are a thing, whether we consider that good or not. And also community built mods where people don't get paid are also a thing. This isn't some unheard of concept, but still, I feel like aware of the fact that this is the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam, not a good look that they're actively soliciting for people to work on this for free. You're gonna get free help on a game that's so highly anticipated and that's also an open world MMO. What are the odds that that's going to be great work if it's people who are just able to work for free? This is not a common occurrence in the games industry. You have a big budget game like this that's the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam. You should be paying people, and that brings us up to the other concern. Why are they not paying people? Do they not have the funding? With the anticipation behind this title, one would assume that they could easily find investors and get people to pay money so that they can pay the people working on it. I know being wishlisted itself doesn't bring in any money, but those metrics should certainly be enough proof to get people interested in spending money on the project, in investing. And if they are having trouble getting funding for the game, I have to wonder if that's because what they are showing potential investors just isn't looking good. Unpaid help, volunteering for things in various aspects in and outside of gaming, it's a totally reasonable thing, but they should be paying people being so highly anticipated. And if they can't pay people, that is yet another red flag.
Yeah, because it's like, it's very hard to go up there and say that you're the most wishlisted game on Steam. And if you say that to an investor's gonna be like, oh, let me see. Oh, you are. And the investor's gonna be like, well, how much do you need? And how much am I gonna get? Well, what does the deal look like? What's equity? What royalties will I have? The fact that you have something like that, and if there's gonna be issues with funding when it comes to the game, which I mean, if you're taking in free work, kind of tells me that you are having issues with funding. Or maybe you're just being smart and taking advantage of like people who want to work for free to see this game come to fruition. Maybe you can promise them like early access or something like that, right? Like, or free copy or whatever, or your name in the credits, or for your resume. It's very hard for me to justify the actions that they've taken. Because when you look, not the same like genre, like let's say like you look at Ashes of Creation, when people invested into Ashes of Creation, like they hired all these devs to work on the game, all paid, like everything, just to make sure that it comes out good. Every and to ensure people, like, you know, you have to realize like even Ashes, people are saying like, yeah, that game's a scam. And they like every month release like an update or something. They communicate. So also they're not just like taking in like volunteers. They're actually searching for people to do unpaid work. That does make their funding like suspicious. For sure. I don't have enough proof to say like that is the case. And you know, you never know. Maybe they're just like being smart basically, because like they're probably saying like, hey, instead of like spending the budget on this, we could be like, hey, this game is the most wishlisted game on stream. If you work on this, your name's gonna be on this, and that's probably gonna do more for your career if you help in this game than the actual pay that you would have gotten. You know, so who knows? Who knows what they tried?
Flag amongst a pile of red flags. And I want to say here, we've touched on a lot of aspects. We've touched on the developer's history. We've touched on just some concerns with what they've shown of the game itself. But specifically, when we look back at their prior games, I want to note that having made bad games in the past does not mean that they can't make a good game in the future. I would say that Prop Night, if nothing else, at least seems somewhat competent. It does appear to be a functioning game that some people have derived some enjoyment out of. So they seem to have at least delivered that with their most recent release. But also remember that it has been less than a year and the game already sits at a mixed rating with a dwindling player base. But I think the real issue here isn't even the quality of the games that they've made so far.
I don't know, man. I feel like it's inconsistent. I mean, maybe they improved this over the
player base. But I think the real issue here isn't even the quality of the games that they made with their most recent release, but also
like, right? Look at how he runs. Not as the physics aren't as
remember
as good,
that it
right?
has been
like stiff, and then you go over to the older video, right? And the physics are much better. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Been less than a year and the game already sits at a mixed rating with a dwindling player base. But I think the real issue here isn't even the quality of the games that they've made so far, but their decision making and their actions around those games. Selling and then abandoning their first two titles almost immediately after their early access releases, hiding the fact that they've made certain games on their website. They even, I didn't mention this, but they deleted all of those games' trailers from their developer channel. It used to be full of trailers for Dead Dozen and Wild 8. They deleted all of those because they don't want to be associated with their prior work. And then most recently, the fact that they're actively searching for unpaid help while simultaneously being the most anticipated game on the largest PC platform. Just about every move that this developer has made since its inception in 2015 should leave us very skeptical on the likelihood that they will deliver and live up to the hype of being the most wishlisted game on Steam. I want a good next-gen open world survival zombie MMO as much of the rest of you. I still think it is a genre in gaming that has a lot more potential and, well, just a lot more potential. There should be more games, more good games made in this genre. And I get the hype, but as good as you may think that these trailers have looked, even with all the issues that I've pointed out, as good as those trailers do generally look, if we were taking bets, I would not put any money on the day before delivering. That's all I'm saying. That's gonna do it for today's video. As always, thank you.
So the fact that it's been removed from Steam is already a good sign, in my opinion, because like now nobody's gonna be pre-ordering it. right? Nobody's gonna be pre-ordering it. So if it is a scam, then they've wasted all this, like, a lot of money already, probably like overspent their budget. And if they don't deliver, they're gonna be at a bigger deficit than before, right? So number two is, like, I'm sure that they know themselves that this is, if this game becomes a reality, it's, you know, it would be a game changing thing for their company, obviously. But the good thing about this is that, like, if it doesn't deliver, big companies now know what people are looking for. And like I said earlier, now that they know, I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't already started making a game like this, right? Because they have all of the pieces now. Like, they don't even need to make a trailer themselves. These guys already made the trailer for them, and all they have to do is make a game that's like exactly like that and release it, and then boom, most wishless game on Steam. It's that easy. But hopefully something good comes out of this, whether it's from these developers or not. You know, like, you already know that it's coming. It's 100% coming. So whether, you know, whether they deliver or not, like I said, yeah. Well, that's it.